Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live, the EU-PU gameplay feature team. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And if you've never seen a Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we hang out with our developers. Sometimes we follow their process, see how they work. Sometimes we throw them to the wolves and answer your questions live. On the show this week, we have members from our EU-PU gameplay feature team. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We've got we've got Yarrick this way, Jacob, and Torsten. Torsten and Jacob, you've been on the show before, but every show is somebody's first show. So let's take a few minutes and introduce yourselves and tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen. We'll start with you, Torsten.
Hello, I'm Torsten, and I am the Senior Systems Designer for the EU-PU feature team.
And what does the Senior Systems Designer do?
It's the every system that runs through us, like mining and salvage, life support, engineering, everything that needs to have a proper paper design and some proper functionality associated with it. And basically my job is to create or envision those functionalities with still fitting into the vision from the entire game.
Gotcha. And when does the Banu Mergeman come out?
That is not a question that I can answer.
All right. Jacob, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hey, I'm Jacob. I'm a gameplay programmer, and so I mainly am responsible for the programming of the loot generation system, and I also maintain the room system as well.
Yeah. And how many planets or moons will the Nix system have?
That's not a question for me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I woke up and I chose violence today. Joining us to the show the first time, this is his first show, and he must think this is crazy and like, what did I get myself into? Yarrick, who are you, and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hello, I'm Yarek. I'm a gameplay programmer like Jacob, so also programming. Now I'm doing life support. Before I done the laser chip mine, for example, and some of the mining gadget work. And yeah, that's it basically.
And West Ham United last won the English Football Cup in what year?
I don't know. Let's say 2003. No, yeah.
I honestly have no idea. I don't even know if that's a real football team or not. It's something I've heard in the time. So, on the show this week, we are talking about EU-PU gameplay features. These are things like refueling, loot, mining, life support, power management, stuff like this. There are multiple gameplay feature teams in the company. There's this team. There's one in the U.S. There's a couple working for Squadron 42 stuff. This is all my way of saying that there will be topics that this team can discuss and answer questions on, and then there will be topics that seem like it's theirs, but it's actually another team with a very similar title in another country or whatever. So just keep that in mind. As we answer questions, you may get a couple that's not my area or something like that. It's part and parcel of the game. So we still got a lot to talk about this week. This show was originally scheduled to air exactly a month ago. February 25th. We delayed it because of the world situation at the time, but we are back. To that end, we are still using the questions from a month ago. So if any of these questions that we come up with have been answered subsequently, we'll by Todd Pappy on last week's show or something, we'll mention that. Additionally, the time has actually given us the chance to get some answers to questions we didn't have answers to before. So we'll see how this one goes. Let's start with refueling. Now, a lot of the questions that came in from the chat all dealt with refueling in one way or another. Probably our biggest source of questions, because it's been 2 or 3 months now since we discussed refueling on ISC. Let's go ahead and start with a primer and talk again about what refueling looks like in 3.17, how it works. We don't need every detail. Just remind us of the flow here a little bit.
So first off, you need a starfarer to refuel, and because this is right now our only refueling ship we have, we at least have two variances. We have the normal starfarer and the starfarer Gemini. And what you do there is, well, you start spawning your ship at any harbor that you are at. Then you need to open the vehicle maintenance services that you already know how to refuel. But now it looks a bit different. So we improved that a bit to tailor to the demands of the refueling mechanic and the starfarer. So now you have two buttons, which one is the auto button and the other one is the manual button. In the auto button just refills your internal fuel tanks, while if you click on the manual button, it will open a list of all the available fuel tanks and fuel pods. So fuel pods are the ones at the outside of the starfarer, the fuel tanks basically you use for the refueling. So you fill them dedicated with whatever you want to pick. So you can fill all 6 of them with hydrogen fuel if you like, but you can also fill 3 with hydrogen fuel and 3 with quantum fuel. And the next step that you need to do is lift off. And then basically you are up for the market. And there, sadly, we don't have the beacon system yet. So you are reliant on chat communication, or if you are in an organization, you either have Discord or TeamSpeak to talk to them to ask for refueling, or offer you refueling services. And once you found someone that is in need, you basically extend your boom arm. Then a docking procedure takes place. You need to set a price for the fuel. You can even give it out for free if you feel like it. And then the docked ship goes through the very same process like you did on the station. So the ship in need opens again. The mobi-glass goes into the vehicle maintenance service, purchases the amount of fuel that the player needs, and you as the starfarer owner then get the request. And what you do next is open the corresponding fuel tank to allow the flow for, let's say, hydrogen to go through the nozzle. And then you open the nozzle and you can control the flow speed there. So you have an impact on the time it takes to fill the other ship. And once the other ship is filled, you're done and both can part their way.
How did he do, Euro and Jacob? Did he get it all? I saw you guys just like nodding as he was going, like checking his work.
Yeah.
Did you do all that from memory, or do you have cheat sheet on your monitor?
I did it from memory. I played it a lot, and so Jaro and Jacob did also play it a lot.
Yeah,
we played it like the recent internal playtest sessions all the time.
How has it changed over this quarter? I mean, like I said, we showed it very early. We showed it in January, which is earlier than we usually have any of this stuff because it was originally targeting for 316, so we had it a little bit earlier. But so with this extra time, how has refueling changed or evolved over this quarter?
From the system itself, not too much. So we did only some minor tweaks. So we have now a variable flow speed in that we didn't have back then. So now it's a bit, you really have to pay attention to the flow speed to not damage your nozzle, because there is this mechanic of the safe flow speed to the nozzle, where if you are above it, you will start damaging it. And we wanted to emphasize this. So we added a mechanic that basically the more pods you have open, the more fluctuation you have in your system, and that can cause the flow speed to rise so that you damage the ship. But the main difference is for definitely the UI. So we got a lot of UI work done in the last couple of months, and it shows. I'm really satisfied with that. And something that we did get, which we wouldn't have gotten if we would have aimed for the earlier release, is the direct interaction in the backside of the starfarer. So right now you have the direct control screens directly at the pods, and I'm really happy that we got that. So now, it opens possibilities. Let's phrase it that way.
Possibilities for,
like if someone accidentally jumps on your catwalk and then closes the fuel pod steps. Sabotage.
Sabotage.
Yes.
No, I'm glad you mentioned the UI. In some respects, I'm a corporate shill, so I don't know if I get to have personal opinions about things. But the UI for refueling and the UI for the new selling mechanic, both coming on 317, are some of the better, more informative and intuitive UIs that I think we've put out in time. I don't think it's any secret that, I mean, UI is one of the toughest parts of any game, and Star Citizen, because we're running a live environment in the middle of our development with gameplay systems that are not finished or complete, UI has always been a struggle, and it will continue to be a struggle while we're still in development and stuff like this. But the UIs for refueling and selling, both coming in 317, are two of my favorites that we've put out there. So if I get to have an opinion, I don't know. Let's look for some more refueling questions here. How long will it take in your mind how long will in your mind the final refueling process take? Of course, it depends on the size of the tanks, but are we talking about minutes or hours?
It's depending on the tank size. So, for example, we balanced it that the Gladius right now is with the standard nozzle and the standard fuel pods roughly 40 seconds. So that is like the ship that we expect to use this mechanic the most. And if you want to refuel an 890 jump, it will take its time because it has giant tanks, and it's not something that we can magically increase the number, because we want to stick to like a certain reality there, in the sense of the pipe has a certain diameter and it can only withstand a certain pressure, and therefore we have this flow rate there as a mechanic, and bigger ships will take longer to refuel.
Okay.
Still very much in the minutes, not hours.
If everything works the way it's supposed to, that's so Jacob, you've been working on refueling. Will the ship hangar or the sub attached be able to refuel from their parent vehicle? I think it's probably like the Merlin or the Archimedes. When attached to the Constellation, will it be able to refuel in that situation?
So to be clear, I have not personally been working on refueling, but I can attempt to answer this question before passing it on anyway.
No, go ahead. Just. But, I tried.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah. So not right now, and probably something that we'll be aiming for in future. Torsten, you can elaborate on that.
That is correct.
When I did the promo for the show this morning, I said it was an hour earlier than it actually was. I clearly am having some like brain flow problems today. All right. When a ship such as the Starfarer is full of fuel and attacked and destroyed, how will the fuel be dropped? Will it be in little tiny boxes, or will it just vanish?
So, because the fuel is part of the fuel pods, it right now will, in the current state, it will explode with the Starfarer. And I already mentioned the screen on the backside of the Starfarer where you control the fuel pods, and there's a little button that says detach, and the detach means that you can drop those fuel pods. And this already gives you a hint of what our aim here is. So if they somehow survive the explosion, that means that other ships are able to pick them up again. So if you own a Starfarer and you just destroyed another Starfarer and you were out of fuel pods that were filled, you might be lucky and can pick them up and attach them to your Starfarer. But this is not for now, this is for the future.
Now I'm imagining Starfarer Geminis hunting regular Starfarers. Let's move into. Let's look at some mining questions here. Big rocks, or big clusters of rocks, are big rocks or big clusters of rocks incoming anytime soon for mining in a group, or are there any plans to force multi-crew organized runs in the same spot with multiple travels to clean the location of valuable minerals?
Yeah, so about the bigger rocks, so that could be a short-term solution to the momentarily very or more or less unattractive multi-crew mining, but we have bigger plans for that. So we have some ideas of how we can improve multi-crew mining in the future. So some of the visions that we have is that we have some weak points that need to be hit at the same time, and even players need to make them explode at the same time. So imagine a situation where you are with several prospectors targeting the same stone. Everyone hits the same weak point of the stone, and then you have to time it so that you don't damage other pieces of the rock, and then the rock splits, and then you can proceed your mining. Same goes for the Argo mole then. So yeah, it's also, and what we also envision there is that we even expand on the functionality of the mining gadget. So for example, if you have a rock where the weak points are opposite, you could use the mining gadget to actually move the weak spot so that you are able to use the Argo mole. But this is very far off in the future right now.
Right, because we talked about it a little bit with Todd last week, because the team's focus is going to be mostly on resource management and live support and stuff for a little bit before you can circle back to some of these other. So.
Right now, our focus is getting all the features done once, so we can start iterating over them.
When new mining gadgets come in, this will be in the farther away in the future, I guess. How do you expect the community to use them if we can't scan the majority of rocks? Now, I know some of those, some of the asteroid scanning it was bug fixes that you talked about being fixed last week.
Yeah, I think Todd mentioned that already last week when we had some fixes in. So there are some fixes that are targeted for 3.17, and we hope that it fixed the majority of the problems, but it's a very complicated manner. So we hope that it fixed it, but we have to see. And,
Okay. This one may or may not be outside your wheelhouse. I feel like it's probably not. But how do you intend to make and balance mining to be a lucrative profession that drives economy? Is that an EUPU gameplay feature, Team Tesco? Look, this person asked. Between ships, escorts, modules, consumables, timers, etc., that seems to be an expensive and dangerous endeavor at the moment.
Yeah, that is definitely not on us to decide. It's on the economy side, but yeah, I fully agree. So I'm not a huge fan of Quantanium being the only profitable resource. I have the feeling that it is something that will change once we have crafting there and player demands and maybe even AI demands there, so that the values of each item shift. But yeah, this is not on us to decide.
Yarrow, I saw you nodding there in agreement. You got something?
Yeah, I'm thinking like in general with those systemic things, it's just kind of it's automatically almost gonna grow with time, and I feel like those values will change naturally over the development. So I can see it only getting better basically. But again, not up to us fully.
I think the takeaway is that from a design perspective, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Torsten, we don't want there to be just the one thing that's valuable to mine. We want it to be valuable for you to mine different things at different times in different places based on market conditions, nearby shops, etc.
And rarity. So if a material is more rare than another, it should also be worth more.
I think viewers will find, if they watch enough of these shows, that game designers often share many of the same feelings and frustrations as the players of the game. When something is limited or something is not as fleshed out as you may wish it is not because people here didn't think to do it. It's just time management and resource management, and like Torsten said, right now the idea is to hit everything once and kind of go around the wheel and make sure there's an introductory version of all these features, and then go back and fill these in. So it's I think Todd actually said it last week too. Patience is one of the hard part for the developers, because we just want to put it all out right now and do it all out, but we can't. We just can't work on everything at once. Let's do one more mining question before we move on. This one's a bit farther out, Torsten. In regards to mining, is the plan still to eventually have subsurface deposits and veins that we can tap into with our miners, as stated in both the prospector and land claim Q&As?
Yes, this is still the plan. So once we have the land claims, yes, you as the landowner should have possibilities to dig a hole and mine stuff, and that opens the possibility for other cases there as well.
Okay. Let's jump into life support. We haven't really talked about life support since I don't know when. I think it was our last Count Disco episode, maybe in 2021 or 2020. I can't remember. Time is an illusion. Start off simply. How is life support? A few years ago, it was mentioned that the room system is finished and it could be easily implemented. What's the holdup at the moment? How is life support?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's progressing, definitely. I'm enjoying working on it. But yeah, I feel like the easily part is probably a bit misleading. It's more than just like room system. There needs to be, graphic user interface for all the panels. There needs to be controls for the rooms. There needs to be integration to resource systems. So there's like a lot of additional work that we're doing right now. And then also we have the setup for the ships, and yeah, but it is definitely progressing, and I'm happy with it so far.
We do have a lot of ships to process to get that in a releasable state. So that definitely is a contributing factor. And the question saying the room system is finished is not quite accurate either. It's constantly in development, being upgraded to support more new features and things like that.
Yeah, it's. I was trying to think of something I could add to that, but no, that's pretty much it. It's
a big feature. It's not like.
And every time we add more ships, it just makes your work just a little bit. like one part, the project keeps moving the goalpost out for you. Like it's only this many ships, and then we keep adding more ships. But yeah, I think it's a major component, not just to not just for the present day gameplay, but it's obviously an essential component to real like multi-crew. One of the things, I mean, there's not a whole lot of multi-crew in Star Citizen right now. There's basically you're a pilot and you're a turret gunner, so like that. But things like resource management and life support and stuff like that. Those are all how we build out the idea of true multi-crew here. And for me, that was always my draw to the game. Like that's what
the classic engineer role. Yeah.
There will be a lot to make that exciting in the not too distant future when we have life support. I'm also thinking about the fire system in development. That gives you another thing for other people on the ship to do other than the pilots. It's, we've got a fire on deck 3, send someone to go deal with that.
Right.
That interacts with life support, resource management, all of that.
Yeah, or just like
all comes together.
The ship, yeah.
And each time one of these systems comes online, that's another place to send damage. So, when ships are being attacked, we can send damage to life support and send damage to power resource management, stuff like that. So the time to live on these ships will last longer and stuff. And it's exciting. It's one of those. the Star Citizen multi-crew gameplay of today will not be what the gameplay is of tomorrow, and it's I'm excited to see some true progress towards that. Is life support still planned to be limited to people? Is life support still planned to be limited to prevent people using ships as a clown car?
Yeah, of course. Because the way it's supposed to work, you like on ISS, you have the scrubber. It removes the CO2, and it has only certain rate that it can process. Yeah, so if you suddenly get like 20 people inside of a small ship that's designed for like 2 people, then your life support is gonna start not managing it, and that the rate of flow of the air through the system will be too slow. The CO2 will build up, and you'll probably die. But obviously, it's all gonna needs to be balanced well with the bigger ships and then the different rooms in the ships. So there's
We don't want to put a hard limit on it. That is something. So we want to have it systemic driven. So that means that, so if you have an Aurora and you want to claim it with 5 people, then sure, it will work. But what you have to do as the person running the Aurora, you have to replace the skimmer constantly, because the skimmer just depletes very, very fast because because of the CO2 production in the room. And then, yeah, sure. If you want to decide to, every 10 minutes I have to replace the skimmer, sure.
And also like you have, life support is not only doing the CO2, it's also like temperature and the pressure, and those things will be also hit by too many people breathing in the room, because then it's less time for heating or cooling the room. So it's gonna be interesting gameplay there to balance what you want in your rooms, to the atmosphere to be like.
Several people in the chat are listening to your answers and all saying, how does any of that work with something like the Valkyrie, where you're supposed to have big open side doors, and so how does that work with some of these drop ships that are designed to have big open spaces to the?
So one of the things that will have to come along with life support is dynamic atmosphere propagations. Fancy name for just air actually moving between things. So if you have the doors open, you're going to be getting whatever atmosphere is on the other side of those doors. If you open the doors in space, you're going to have a bad time for anyone on there who wants to breathe. But yeah, you'll be able to fly around and in a way catch some atmosphere from the planet that you're in. I think that'll have some interesting implications in future for planets with not human breathable atmospheres. It'll make your life support system have to work a bit harder once you close those doors to try and clean that up for you.
And we've seen some ships like the Idris or the Javelin. They have like the Star Wars or Star Trek, force field walls and doors that helps keep atmosphere in. So it remains to be seen, what ships will have, stuff like that, and what may not. B Quartermass says, "Is this live?" No. Now, last week we did all the thing where I put it on the screen. I said it wasn't live, but this week I thought I'd let people wonder. Do we have any more life support questions? Let's see. What do you guys have against clown cars? Will T0 of life support allow atmosphere management on a per room basis, or will it be one atmosphere setting throughout the entire ship?
It's going to be per room. We want to go like as reasonably granular as it makes sense for T0, obviously. So you'll be able to set like the pressure in the rooms. You'll be able to set the temperature in the rooms. It can be different in each rooms, and like also like the rate for the scrubbing. So like it's gonna be like a balance for each room. What do you want this room to behave like? And there's gonna be a decent amount of like a choice there for player to do.
I think one of our
go ahead.
One of our big considerations for this is that while you are going to be able to do everything on a per room basis, we're going to be making sure to have a good focus on usability, and again, the quality of UI will help with that, so that it doesn't feel tedious.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That like there's gonna be like obviously presets for like, oh, just maintain this room in like a normal state for life, let's say, but then maybe you want it to be like warmer than average, so you're gonna focus the life support on the temperature to keep the temperature higher, and like maybe that you don't care about the CO2 levels in this room. So it's like, I think the idea is for the baseline to be very simple. You don't really need to do much, but if you want to go into these details for some specific purpose, you can. That's
Zulu Foxtrot keeps trying to backwards engineer questions about night vision by attaching it to questions about stuff that you guys actually work on. Foxtrot. Night vision is actually a graphics engineering thing, and we discussed it most recently with Director of Graphics Engineering, Ali Brown, so I encourage you to check that out. There's no easy answer, but the truthful answer is in that show, so check that out. It's like, I have watched enough 80s sitcoms to know when you're trying to backdoor a different topic into what we're actually supposed to be talking about. I wasn't born yesterday. I was born a long, long time ago. Well, life support systems require consumables that must be restocked.
I think we already mentioned that. So yeah, obviously you have the filters for the air, so for the scrubbing of the air from the CO2, so you need a special material for that will take care of it. And so that's one. We'll also have some for like heating up the rooms. We also so we've got a bunch. It's gonna be like a real system inside of the ship that you can put things in and make it work.
There's a follow-up from chat that says, will depressurizing rooms during combat provide any advantages to stuff? Can you drawing the air out of a room if your attackers aren't helmeted?
I mean, like possibly you'd get more power. Life support obviously uses power, so I guess if you kind of turn it off completely, then you'd get more power. I
like the engineering gameplay of cut power to life support, all power to engines.
Yeah, exactly.
If you've got a really huge ship where the life support's taking up a lot of power, then that could be a thing.
Or some damage.
But I think that question was more aimed on offensive uses of life support. And you'll definitely be able to turn off the air if you've got borders.
For the borders, right,
Yes.
Of course.
Or what if,
and you can like heat it up, cool it down. Yeah.
But we'll be rate limited on how much the life support system can actually suck out of that room in a given time.
Well, I mean, obviously rate limited, and also, once you suck out the atmosphere and you don't put it in the tanks, it's gonna be gone. You can vent it outside, and then it's lost. So you kind of also have to think about that. So that's if you have a room in your tanks, then it's fine. But
what about replacing the oxygen with something toxic?
So in T0 we won't have support for like composition of the atmosphere. That's not yet a thing.
But you're open to it later on.
Of course.
There will be something similar with fire, I guess, that fire creating excess carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide does make the room it's in toxic, but you won't be able to do that on demand in T0.
That seems to be a good bridge into resource management. I don't think you can talk. I mean, any discussion of life support has to go right into resource management. They're inextricably tied. We haven't talked about resource management since we had that wonderful demo with Dan Truffin way back when. What can you give us about it before we get into the specific questions here? What can you give us as a general kind of update? How is it going? Is it going? Is it moved since we showed it so long ago?
Yeah, there are improvements. I mean, some things are necessary for life support to use it. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on partially. So we have I guess support for it to interact with the room system. Yeah, to exchange the gases from the tank with the rooms. Yeah, and that's all coming together.
You got anything to add, Torsten?
And in addition to the work that Yaro does for the life support, we also started working on the proper engineering screens because they are the same. So basically, the life support UI interface will be just an overlay or a layer inside the engineering screen. So every engineering screen is also directly a life support user interface, right?
Okay. Just because it was that Halloween episode way back when, and nobody's seen or heard from Count Disco since. We've gained a lot of Star Citizen backers since then. Can you give us a kind of a general overview? I'm not going to ask you. You can clearly do it as we demonstrated with the refueling. So not the entire loop, but what are our goals? What are the goals? What's the intention? Just the top level of resource management, power management, however you want to refer to it. What are we trying to do here?
So our goal there is to give the all resources distribution of any ship in player's hands. So we have fuel. We have fuel that is consumed by the power plant and by the engines, and you are in control of how much fuel those engines and the power plant gets. And depending on how much fuel the power plant gets, it will create energy, and you can distribute that energy. So, for example, you could even say, okay, I don't need any light in my ship. So none of the energy goes to the light or the doors. So all the doors stay open for the full time, but all the energy goes to the weapons, for example, or the shields. So this is something that you will be able to manage on the fly. So dynamically, anytime, any day, on any ship, you will be able to have full control over the resource distribution of your ship.
Yeah. And this follow-up question is probably very similar to the life support one. Regarding resource management, will content teams need to rework existing ships before this can be implemented in the PU?
Yes. Quite significantly, actually, yes. Because we have some legacy systems that work, but are not the ideal way that we intended to have it work. So there are some optimizations that we have to do so that it runs performant and that we don't put too much stress on everything, which is already quite stressed. So there's a lot to do on our side. So every ship needs to be touched, and every item that is existing also needs to be touched.
The good thing is that it's kind of going to be a bit combined, I think, with the life support. So because they both use obviously resource systems, so it's like at least it won't have to be done twice. Hopefully, maybe.
That's the big benefit of this system. So because we now have the opportunity to start or to work on life support in parallel with the engineering, they all tie together, and our aim is also to have them release at the same time, because it's sharing the same UI, it's sharing the same systems. So it is the same system, it just does a bit more complicated stuff with connecting it to the room systems and so forth. So yeah.
And it's not just your team. It's the UI team. It's the VFX team. It's the sound effects team. This is a major component of fulfilling that vision of ship life in the Star Citizen universe. And so yeah, you guys are here at the Vanguard, but eventually it's going to open up and it'll be an all hands on deck kind of thing.
Every team is involved there. Every team has to do some update stuffs on their systems to utilize the new resource networks. So it's, like you said, every team has to be involved here.
We haven't talked looting. Let's switch to some looting stuff. We know that there are changes to loot generation coming in 3.17. It would be extremely useful if portable loot boxes would snap to the cargo grid of a ship or onto each other. It would. Is this planned for the future?
So, short answer is yes, but slightly longer answer is that the portable loot boxes in general are under a bit of a review. There's a variety of implications of them from both a balance and a performance perspective. So they are under review, but we do hope that in the future you will be able to stack them on your cargo grid and do anything else you want with them. That is obviously also awaiting the cargo refactor.
Why is there still no SCU cargo to loot around derelicts? What is needed to put them in?
So the why they're not there is a question for the level designers. But as to what's needed to put them in, I'm fairly confident that we have everything needed for that on the tech side. So yeah, it's down to level design to put them there if they want them, decide what goes where.
I'll add a little context to that just so Jacob doesn't have a sniper dot from the level design team on his chest tomorrow afternoon. That is part of the work that Montreal is doing with the new complete revamp of derelicts from the ground up. Part of what you saw in ISC yesterday and stuff is them building out the interiors and all that stuff, and as part of that there will be loot generation spots and stuff like that. So that's all part of the new derelict 2.0, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yes. I should add that we have been in constant contact with the level designers, including the Montreal team. So yes, they are aware that this is a thing that we could do. They are considering it, etc. We're all working together on this.
Yeah. Will there ever be items or weapons found exclusively through looting, i.e., you can't buy them in stores?
So that is absolutely a yes. I think it was on one of the recent ISCs with Samuel Molina, who mentioned that yes, for 3.17 we're introducing for the first time different rarity levels of items and loot boxes. So yes, some of those rare items will not be found in stores, and they will be hard to get, proportional to their value.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want. This is where I'm going to go ahead and say that there are 9 of those Pico balls that spawn in the persistent universe, and only 9 that spawn on each server as they start. And I've been hounding Ben Dorsey to make them the most valuable item in the PU. We'll see if my peer pressure wins that or not. I don't know if it will. Probably not. People usually just shine me on. Anybody that's ever met me, anyway. Will hydrogen fuel ever be a lootable item that you can then go back to your ship and use it to refuel yourself?
That's a bit of a hybrid question between refueling and.
And can you use night vision when you do it?
Oh, come on. I'm not answering that. But as for the loot side of it, we've been considering all sorts of features and how they can tie into loot generation. Upcoming features, existing features. We're thinking about what related to this feature could you find in a loot box, and where would it make sense to find it and stuff. So it's not out of the question that fuel could be one of those things, but it does also depend on how refueling continues to develop, particularly with in-hangar refueling of ground vehicles. Those are things that are not fully fleshed out yet. So there are not plans right now to have lootable fuel, but we are considering lootable anything.
Let's jump into some general stuff here. Historically, decompression was a thing. With character force reactions and life support, atmospheric room containers, what's stopping the delivery of decompression and people getting sucked out of airlock mechanics? And we actually showed an early prototype of that back in 2015 at Gamescom.
Yeah.
Red
So
one,
we've
Jared,
definitely been thinking about that, but it's mainly a prioritization and an order of business thing. That the people that would be implementing that, mainly myself and Yarrow, are currently doing life support and other things. So that's definitely on the cards, but later down the line, reliant on life support being finished before we start doing that. And again, definitely the what's stopping part. There's still a lot of other teams downstream requirements as well, but to get that sort of explosive decompression
VFX,
working,
the sounds, everything, of course. That's, again, it seems like such a simple thing, but then you kind of have to add everything there, and you kind of, I think it's
back on the discussion of loot and rarity from the live chat here. I'm trying to think how to reword this. How do many games have like predefined levels of rarity? There's like common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, to use the WoW model. Do we have those levels set? Are you at a place where you can share with us what are the rarity levels referred to as? And do they have colors?
They definitely don't have colors. We're not doing that. It would not fit with the sort of level of realism that we're going for. We do have some fixed rarity tiers of loot boxes, and at the moment, off the top of my head, I think we've got common, uncommon, rare. But what that means is not a global setting. So how likely you are to find a rare loot box is not going to be the same in every location, and its contents are not going to be the same in every location. It's something that the designers are thinking a lot about, of how to balance what crates and what contents you get where. And it's also something that we are having ongoing discussions with the economy team about how we balance the amount of value you can get out of containers.
Also, rare for Stanton doesn't mean that it's rare in Pyro, for example. So items that you are more likely to find in Stanton are probably less likely to find in Pyro.
Gotcha.
Yeah, very good point.
So when we talk about rarity, we are not talking about stats. We are not talking about this thing is not using it in the traditional WoW model where every time you fight this thing it drops an epic thing. We are talking about rarity in the truest sense of its word, and how difficult it is to find, how difficult it is to acquire. And what you're saying is that items will be rare in Pyro, but not necessarily rare in Stanton, and then vice versa. We're taking it from a holistic, story-based kind of, what would likely be found in these areas, what would less likely be found in these areas, for a quite literal interpretation of the word rarity.
Yes, we have different sort of levels of system working together for that. When a designer sets up a location, they decide specifically to that location how likely different containers should be, and they can decide how likely certain types of loot should be. But then we do have a broad sort of grouping of which items on the whole are more valuable, uncommon, rare, whatever, are more. So it helps the designers to approach things bit by bit. They can do broad strokes, and they can get right down to specifics for individual locations.
Yeah, so I want to shout this. I want to make sure that this gets really clear out there, because I'm looking at what's happening in chat right now. It is not Rarity is not a measure of the quality of the item and it's like that. It is not gear score. It is not a purple item is better than a blue item kind of thing. It is on Microtech, you're more likely to find a Pico. On Crusader, you're more likely to find a Finley. On Hurston, you're less likely to find either one of them, because Hurston hates those guys. Stuff like that. Not using that specific example, but as literally just an analogy. It is about just trying to make loot seem diegetic and real, and, for lack of a better term, just make sense. What would you expect to find in this kind of thing? Not to say that there can't be surprises. That's what the Rarity is. Not that there can't be surprises. There will always be surprises in the world. Everybody loves a surprise. But it's about storytelling, as most things are at the heart of Star Citizen. Is engineering a profession like mining and refueling?
Yes, but also no. So yes, on the side. The main difference here is that for mining and for refueling, you have a resource, or you gather a resource and then you sell it either to a player or you sell it to a trade terminal. For engineering, it's you stand around in a ship and you press buttons, right? So it's a profession in the sense of someone better pay you to do your job, else you will mess up their ship and it might not work. But that's it. So it is a profession, yes, but there's nothing to trade with. Yeah,
it's another distinction from like the typical classes in an MMO. It's your character can act like a rogue, can act like a fighter, can act like a cleric, can act like a paladin. There is no, hey, suddenly I've chosen a thing and I have a label and I am this kind of stuff like that. So I think that's probably the better way to look at professions. As a human being who had 36 jobs before I came here, it's and it's had 6 titles here, even though my job hasn't changed. Trying to label what you are and how you do in life is not always the easiest thing. And I think we take that same approach in Star Citizen. We give you the tools to be a miner on Tuesday and be a salvager on Wednesday and be a refueler on Thursday and stuff like this. And it's not one of those is meant to like define you top to bottom kind of thing. It's like, this is my profession. They're all opportunities for you to live your life in the verse and for you to swim through as you see fit. Got some Jean-Paul Sartre answers today. Is that how you say his name? I don't know. I shouldn't have even tried to pronounce it. I'm not the pronouncer person.
That's right.
Did I do it?
I'd say Sartre. I'm not sure.
Well, if I did, it was on accident. Let's touch some refueling ones before we got to go again, since it's one of the big ticket items for 317. Will every ship in 317 have a physical fuel port on the top, and how will the second fuel port be used?
So no, not all ships will have the physical port to the top. So that is part of the gold standard. So some ships or ships that are coming are supposed to have it already. So it should be already planned for them. But the older ships, they need to, some of them need to be added. So right now the Gladius already has it. And on the second part to the question, the second port is mainly there for hangar refueling. So the top one is just there for in-flight refueling with the Starfarer, and the bottom one is if you're stationary, someone with a hose comes in and refuels your ship this way.
Okay. How will the development of ship-to-ship refueling change the station and pad refueling we've had going until now?
Well, we did not change the refueling itself, but we at least updated the UI which I already mentioned. So that is the only impact we have there.
Will there be an easy way to share your location for refueling?
Yes, once we get the beacon system sorted, then yes, there will be.
But that's not 317.
Sadly not.
Okay. Well, I think we just added an answer to this one already. Where does refueling go after 317? Service beacons, but also
service beacons. There are some gameplays that didn't make it that we envisioned for the refueling. So one thing, I think most of you are aware that there is this mechanic of this hidden stash fuel if you are stranded in space and you completely ran out of fuel, so you cannot theoretically dock to the boom arm anymore. So you have this reserve fuel that allows you to use this dedicated only with docking to be able to dock to the Starfarer again. This is just something there because we didn't get the tractor beam right. So there's supposed to be a tractor beam functionality that can pull you in, as well as we envisioned a more direct nozzle control, because right now the nozzle is very static. So it's a stiff nozzle, but we also wanted to have some direct control over that. And tying to that, we also wanted to make it more interesting in flight for the player attached to the Starfarer, so that there's a tension gameplay. So if the forces to one side or the other are too high, you as the attached ship have to maneuver against them. So this is something that we also wanted to have there, but it didn't make it for T0.
Gotcha. All right. And last question. Did you enjoy putting together your Lego Discovery, and can you implement night vision in order to make it easier?
I don't get how night vision would make it easier, but it's a fun Lego piece. It's a fun Lego piece.
I don't know. It's just what it said. All right. That's it, everybody. Thank you for being here, for coming back after we had to reschedule your show last time. That's been Star Citizen Live, the EU-PU gameplay feature team. Keep an eye out on the robertspaceindustries.com website for information on when 317 is heading your way. I know it's in Evocati right now. My understanding, at least at this time, this is just me being here for as long as I have, is that Wave 1 PTU is kind of a day-by-day kind of thing. We absolutely want to get it out in your hands and everything, but again, it has to reach certain thresholds. It has to be worth it. It has to be useful to get it out into those tests and stuff. So if it's already at a certain point where we don't need people to tell us it's broken because we already know it's broken, there's no reason to push it out. So check back on that for updates on when that happens. Next week is our last episode of ISC for the quarter before we go on our hiatus. We'll be doing our patch report. We'll go through all the stuff that's coming in Alpha 317, and something that I just realized that I actually can't tell you about because it's a surprise. So you'll have to tune in on Thursday to find out what that is. And then Friday, back here, April 1st, it's Jeremiah and I. It's going to be dumb. You know it's going to be dumb. I don't know what it is yet, but Jeremiah and I on April 1st, it's going to be dumb. And it may or may not be the last show we do here in LA, depending on visa processing time. So who knows? We might be here for a couple more weeks. It might be the last one. I don't know. We're all just kind of waiting. So for Jacob, and Yerrick and Torsten, I'm Jared. Thank you for being here with us this week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I honestly have no idea what we're doing on April 1st. I just realized it was April 1st when I said that. It was just going to be us goofing around, but now I got to come up with something, don't I? Yes, I know you can still hear me. We do this every week. People are like, we can still hear you. I know. I do this on purpose because I like chaos.